All right, so we have one last thing to do, and this is just that last little bit of giving you some room to play with things once they're all in place. Okay, so we have where we left off before, which is we can move our character around just by using the joystick and pick some directions. And now we're in the zone where we can tune things up a little bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our locomotion script and take a look at how we transition from our walk to our run. And right now the thresholds here are automated, right? But I can change these a little bit if it doesn't feel right, right? Maybe I want this to be up here at 0.5 and our run to be at 1. In fact, maybe 0.75. So as I'm pushing the stick forward, I transition a little bit easier, and then I jump into the run just as I get to the end. So that might give me a little bit more flexibility. So if I run this a little bit more, see, I can get my walk and then into a little quick jog, and then before I get into my run. So I can just tell you by playing with this on the joystick, this feels a little bit better. It's not quite as sensitive. And the other thing that I'm noticing is that I kind of feel like I'm not really getting the speed out of the run that I want to get out of it. So we can adjust this a little bit. And there's one thing that we didn't go over in the blend trees, and that's this adjust timescale. And what we can do with these timescale adjustments is we can set them all to be normalized so that everything sort of happens at the same speed, right? So what happens if I select my run and I say homogeneous speed? Now everything's happening at the same speed. My turns, my walks, my runs. I can do the same thing here, homogeneous speed. That all happens at the same rate, and I don't get homogeneous speed in this case here because I have blend trees. So now my walk left, my walk right should all sort of be happening at the same rate. You see they're slightly different, and that's pretty normal for here. If we had the run and the walk together, we'd see a lot of variability here. But we're going to work with this, and then what we can see if we back out of the base layer is that by clicking on locomotion, we do have a speed multiplier here, right? This gives us a little bit of variability. Let's say I punch this up a little bit to 1.5 and I hit play. What you'll see is when I press forward is that my walk happens a little bit faster than it did before, and my run certainly happens faster. I lost my guy here. There he is. My run happens a little bit faster. So this is a way of getting a little bit of adjustment out of your gameplay, so you can get those final tweaks. So you don't have to keep going back to animation. But what if you want to adjust not globally, but based on whether you're in the walk or the run or how far you're deflecting? So we can add to our joystick command here a little bit of information to get our speed from adjusting from our walk to our run, so we can have a little bit more granularity and control. So the first thing we want to do is come down here and we want to add a parameter called speed. And what this will allow us to do is this can pass in how fast we want this to happen. So I'm going to set my speed back to 1, and what we're going to do is create a multiplier by setting this to speed. Now if I were to press play now, what will happen is that will multiply against 0, and you see nothing will happen except I start floating in space, right? Because my motion isn't changing. Everything is just being 0, so I'm just blending between my various walk and run states here. So what we can do is we have to set that from our script. All right, so let's come back to our script. Now there is a really cool function, and I'm just going to go ahead and we can adjust this. We can create a new and we'll just call it SP for speed. And we can go right back to our mathf, and we're going to call lerp, right? And that's linear interpolation, and you can see here it interpolates between A and B by t, right? And t is just the value that we're going to use to interpolate. And if it, as this value goes from 0 to 1, it's going to be multiplied by these values, right? So if this is 1 and this is 10, as this goes from 0 to 1, what this function will return is a transition from 0 to 10, right? Or starting and ending values of whatever you want. So what we're going to do is say, we do need some more variables here. So let's come back out to here, and we need to create some public variables. We're going to call this one walk speed, and this one run speed. Okay, so now we can come down here and we can say we're going to move from walk speed to run speed based on the magnitude of our joystick. And then finally we're going to come down here and say animator set float speed SP. All right. Now, what this allows us to do is, I'm going to save this, is this will return a value between whatever we input and give it to the speed parameter. And the speed parameter will multiply itself here against the locomotion. Right? So the speed of the locomotion, and it's a little confusing because we call it all this speed, 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 but the speed of the locomotion can be affected by the speed parameter. Now let me turn this off, and you'll see that when I come back here, I have my walk speed and my run speed that I can input. And I'm going to put this as 1.2 and 2. Right? So running will be twice as fast. Now this can get a little crazy. Let me back away and set our camera here. And if we do nothing else, right now we have that parameter turned up, but we can look at here, see how our speed is at 1.2, and as I press the stick forward, that's going to go up to 2. Right? So now we can see that we can make these adjustments and interpolate between them. So let's go back here and actually activate this parameter. So now I should be able to run faster and walk a little bit faster. Yeah, now that feels much snappier. That's a pretty extreme adjustment, but it does feel much better in the long run. Okay, so that's a nice little adjustment. And then finally we can do a couple other things just for fun, which is we can start adding colliders to our character here. So we'll say component physics capsule collider, and we can see it in the viewport here barely, but I'm going to move it up and make it a little bit bigger. There's our capsule, and we can also add in a rigid body component to this. So now that's a rigid body, and we don't need rotation, so we'll do that. And finally we can add in some other game objects if we want. So if we put a cube in here, and we'll call this a rigid body, and then we can just start duplicating these around. Alright, so now we have our character with its rigid body, capsule collider, and a couple of the rigid bodies in the scene, and we hit play, and everything will settle as we move around. See, we can walk through things now, knock them off the zone. And turn around a little bit. Whoops, there we go. Okay, it looks like I still have some adjustments to do, but you can see now that I have a minimally controlled character that falls off of things and can run into things, and gives you a little bit of a playground in order to play with your own characters and go from there. All right, thanks a lot, and till next time.